Okay, hi everyone. I think we are good to go. So thanks for joining us and welcome to this session, which is part of the second virtual forum on social innovation from Duke and UNICEF. So this panel is focused on lean prototyping through partnerships, which is always an interesting topic. So we've got experts today from myself at UNICEF, we've got those working on social enterprise, some coming from the Duke-UNICEF Innovation Accelerator. It's a really interesting panel and it should be a great discussion and opportunity to share experiences. As I said, we're focusing on prototyping and we're keen to pull out the examples that look at the role partnerships play in prototyping. And we know that innovation for UNICEF is a really kind of key part of our strategy for identifying new solutions to existing problems or to make products and services more desirable, more convenient, more accessible, more affordable, to accelerate our progress towards the SDGs, and in particular in this group, water, sanitation, hygiene, and we're also going to bring in menstrual hygiene practices as well. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. I am Esther Shaylor. I'm an innovation specialist with UNICEF, focused on product-based innovation in supply division, and I'm a WASH specialist. Let me introduce to you today our panel. So each of our panelists is just going to quickly just say who they are, where they're from, and then we'll get on with the meat of the discussion that you all came for. So first of all, Daigo, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself for us, please?
Yes, hello. My name is Daigo Ishiyama. I'm the leader for innovation.
Sorry, Daigo, I'm not sure if it was just me, but did we have your sound?
Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to hope that Daigo is going to join us again, and I will move on to Jamila. Would you like to introduce yourself for us, please?
Thanks, Esther. My name is Jamila. My name is Jamila Mayanja, the founder and team leader at Smart Girls Foundation Uganda, a social enterprise that
How are we doing here, Jamila? Can we hear you? No. Oh, we'll get there. Okay, Eric, would you like to have a go at introducing yourself? We'll see if the curse of the lack of sound. I can't hear you. Great. So it's me who is the failure. Perfect. Christian, can you continue to introduce everyone while I check my sound settings, please?
Sure, yeah, let's go. Let's continue, sorry about that. So Jamila, I see you're up now. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Christian. Hi guys, my name is Jamila Mayanja. I'm the founder and team leader at Smart Girls Foundation Uganda, a social enterprise that empowers girls and women. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamila. And Daigo, I'll go back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I'm my name is Daigo Ishiyama. I am the leader of innovation for Sato, which is a brand of LIXIL. Thank you.
Great. And Peninah.
Thank you. So my name is Peninah Ndegwa. I'm the founder and the managing director of WOMAM Limited, a social enterprise that advocates for children-friendly cities. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Peninah. Next, let's head over to Erchissaran.
Hi everyone, my name is Erchissaran and I'm from Mongolia. I'm a chemist and I have passion for passion for developing products concerning sustainable development goals. And I have been previously worked on water recycling and reusing and off-grid toilets in Mongolia. And my current project is extracting paper from cow dung so that we have more sustainable packaging options in the market. And I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And Edgard.
Yes, so my name is Edgard Ngaboyamahina. I'm leading research and development project at the Duke-UNICEF Center for Warsheds, where our humble goal is to facilitate the development and sustainable deployment of novel wash technology-based solutions for resource-constrained environments. Thank you.
Great. Esther.
Great,
Back
thanks.
to you.
Sorry about my technical issue. All fixed now. Thank you so much for your introductions, everyone. And this is a really interesting session, not just for me personally because of what I work on, but I think we've got a really interesting group of people with a range of experiences. Just to start the discussion off a little bit, I thought I'd share how we approach product innovation at UNICEF. And this is very much the product side of things. I appreciate there are different ways to do it, but the way we look at it, we focus on the issues. We're demand driven over in product innovation. So we want to see what country officers are asking for, government partners, all that kind of thing. And we define what that looks like. We identify the need and what the potential demand is and how we can leverage our role as a procurer. And so what we do with this is we'll speak to country officers and then we'll take this document, we'll create a document called a target product profile. And for us, this defines what a product needs to do and allows us to communicate and engage with developers and entrepreneurs like yourselves and say exactly what it is that UNICEF would buy if a product can do X, Y, and Z. The how is up to the product developers. And so we get involved at the clarifying the need. We take a step back at the research and development. That's where we want kind of the private sector to drive it themselves. And then we'll come back in at the validation and the field testing stage. So in some ways, this prototyping discussion for me is a slightly different angle in that I want a working prototype that I could be using and testing with country offices, and then how we can drive it to scale together. And what I wanted to show is the process we use as UNICEF. So we have quite a defined stage gate approach, which allows us to ensure that we're innovating in the right way and not innovating for innovation's sake. We look at the exploration, the need, as I said, the research and development, validation, and most importantly, and I'm curious to hear from you guys, most challenging often is this transition to scale. And this is where partnerships can really play a part. And we can move around with this in any way, but the point is we have a mechanism that allows us to ensure that we are working towards this scale challenge. And just one example of this for how we have done some prototyping over in product innovation. We've worked on rapid water quality testing where we've identified a range of products with a technical advisory group, as well as industry actors and country offices. And we've reviewed what we consider products that could really address the needs we outlined in our target product profile and looked at which are most ready for use. Most of these are still working prototypes, especially in our use case, because we've got very specific challenges working in the humanitarian and development sector and working towards the SDGs. When we come to field testing, we take a co-creation approach. We need to get an understanding of the product itself and how it performs in the use case, but also how we can work with the developer to give our inputs from our experiences, but to get the product modified to meet those needs. And those field insights are key to having a product that we can then scale and procure in higher volumes. The last stage for us is kind of a tender process. So once we can see that there's a range of products coming to market that address this identified need, then we can use tendering as a mechanism to be able to procure these products and get them into the country offices. And we'll do some field testing to validate the performance under a tender process. So the products that meet the technical requirements in a lab or on paper are then invited for some field testing so we can validate the products and how they perform. And that's kind of our approach. It may not be rapid in terms of prototyping, but it's how we've engaged with the private sector in innovation. And here are some resources. In case you're struggling to write all of these down, it will all be shared afterwards. But just to give you an overview of some of the ways we engage through the tender calendar, UNGM, which is the UN marketplace, we will share specific requests for interest on certain products. And then the target product profiles, as I say, that really communicate under innovation what we're specifically looking for a product to do. So given that's how we operate as product innovation in UNICEF, it'd be really good to kind of look at how you guys, our panelists, have addressed this. And we're going to go to Daigo first, who has been working with Sato, which Sato, I don't know if all of you know, but Sato have developed the Sato Pan, which has been a big product within the wash market that's now, I think about 25 million people are estimated to be using a Sato toilet. And it's a very interesting story on product development. So Daigo, please go ahead, tell us about the Sato toilet and maybe the tap as well if we're lucky. Thanks. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Esther. Yeah, thank you for having me. You know, we've been working on the Sato products, starting with the toilets, now the tap in the hygiene space. But we've been working on this since 2012. And today I just want to take you through how Sato started in 2011-12 timeframe. And then on the more recent topic of developing the Sato Tap, with the help of partners, including UNICEF. So I just want to, share, with you how we develop products, back in 12, and then, how we developed the Tap last year. So I have a few slides that I want to take you through. So let me share that with you. Sorry. Great. Yeah, sorry. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great. So in 2012, there was a grant program at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation called the Reinvent the Toilet Challenge. And so how things got started is we're in a private sector company, but one of our VP at the company, wrote a proposal to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation saying, hey, we've been making toilets for, for many, many years, for decades and, more than a century. There's gotta be something we can do to help. Right, so he wrote that proposal, and then that was accepted. So that's how things got rolling in early 2012. So what we did was, I think it was a suggestion by the Gates Foundation, but we went to Bangladesh and worked with the local NGO, IDE, to do a field research. To be honest, at the time, American Standard, or LIXIL, we weren't in this rural, underserved community market. So we really had to understand the needs of the local markets. So we spent a few weeks in the rural part of Bangladesh, understanding the needs, interviewing many households. So we did that, and what we saw was, basically a toilet like this. It was basically a direct pit latrine, with a pan, a plastic pan on top, but with a direct hole into the pit. So, so we saw this and said, okay, what can we do to close this hole? The smell was just really strong. There was a lot of, bugs, like flies and cockroaches, around the latrine. And the flies, as you know, they transmit disease, So we really wanted to close that hole. So we came up with excuse me, a dozen concepts. And we decided to try this final two. So the one on the left, we call it the integral hydraulically optimized pan, which is, which uses this effect of, I call it the cereal bowl, effect. But, when you pour milk in one side of the cereal bowl, the milk just shoots out, into the other side. So we use that effect to make a very hydraulically optimized pan. And also the one on the right is the trapdoor concept, where we have this mechanical means of closing that hole. So we made these urethane parts ourselves by hand in the company. So that's how we prototyped the first 50 parts. But we didn't know which concept would be better in the market, and better for the users. So we decided to take those urethane parts, and again, with the help of our local partners, IDE, we got some feedback on those prototypes. And we did actual installations of those pans too. This is one example. So we installed these in like late summer, September, October timeframe, and we had the users use that. These were public toilets. We installed them in markets, in schools, to have a lot of users use them. And we went back in late November into December, and we heard user feedbacks on these two prototypes. And we decided that from the feedback, the trap door concept was a lot more user friendly, and it was more like readily accepted by the market. So that's why we decided we decided on the trap door concept, and then we partnered with a local plastic manufacturing partner, RFL, and we produced the first samples in early 2013. And then, we were able to sell the first units in 2013. So all of this happened in the span of about, 8 to 9 months, from really not even having a problem statement that we want to solve to making that problem statement. And going through the ideation phase, concept phase, building prototypes, and implementing with the local partner. And now all of this, cannot happen with just ourselves. We need partners, like UNICEF, IDE, the Gates Foundation, to be, for us to be able to do this. But I think in this example, we were able to bring our expertise in toilet building into, this SDG, problems that we've been having, that smell and insects, drive, or not having those things drive, the sustained use of the toilets and prevent slippage into open defecation. So I think this was a good example of us, making a toilet and injecting this technology into the market. So, so that's how Sato started. And fast forward about 9 years, we've been hit with this COVID-19 pandemic. So early last year, around March of last year, so we had some ideas of, making a hand washing station for Sato. But when the COVID hit, it really put a spotlight on the need for hand washing. And this is a picture of a tippy tap that you probably all know. But so we were pretty new to hand washing space. We knew things, and some things were done, but partners like UNICEF really made us were able to make us understand what the global landscape is on global hand washing, what's been done, what the need is, and all of this to really make us understand what is it that the hand washing products need to do. This is another example of a hand washing solution that was being used. But so during the pandemic, with the lockdown, I live in New Jersey, USA, but the state, went on lockdown. And so we couldn't really use outside resource too much for testing or prototyping. I remember having to wait to get into Home Depot for 45 minutes in my local Home Depot store. So the environment was like this. But with the help of the 3D printer that I know, that I use locally, I was able to do all this product development at home. This is when I was testing the hand washing solution in my kitchen. So, we were able to do this during the pandemic, just testing from home and asking my family members to get the feel, and then give me feedback on the hand washing station I was developing. So, So finally, we came up with this Sato Tap, which consists of two parts, one blow molded nozzle and a base. So, and it works with a plastic bottle. In the local markets, like you saw in the first pictures, there's plenty of local used bottles that goes to or in rivers and things like this. So we decided to use that used plastic bottle as a water reservoir to reuse that resource. And then we put on the side, we made sure, we put a tray for the soap to make sure they have a place for soap. And when the soap is not there, it's a visual reminder that the soap is not there. And hopefully people would, it would remind them to use soap. So those were some of the design elements we put in the Sato Tap. And we made sure that, that every drop of water is being used. So we thought about the mechanism, we thought about how the water, how much water the nozzle dispenses. So this mechanism really uses just gravity and water, the properties of water, to regulate how much water comes out of the dispensing hole. So
sorry, Daigo, can you wrap up in a minute, please?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh, okay, sure. So we tested a whole bunch. We tested up to 3.65 million cycles. And then with the help of our partners again, we deployed many parts in the field for field trial. This is a picture from India. We used it in the food stands. We did some community meetings, around hand washing using TAP. This is a picture from the Philippines. And this is a trial picture from Africa. But so, again, through all this, we couldn't do this alone. And the partners that provided inputs and support, for the product development, that was really, really crucial for the speed. Now, all this happened, the development happened in 6 weeks, time frame, and the speed to market is really important. So the power of partnership was really powerful in the TAP development case as well. So thank you. Back to you, Esther.
Great, thank you, Daigo. That's really interesting, and I have many questions on this product. I've been lucky enough to follow this as it's been developed, so I do have lots of questions, but we're going to save all questions to the end. So please, everybody online, if you do have any questions, throw them in the Q&A box, because then our presenters can respond as we go, and then we'll ask them in the panel at the end. But in the interest of time, let's go straight on to Jamila. Please, if you can share with us a little bit about your work and how, yeah, I'm really interested to hear this one. Please go ahead, Jamila.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Is it showing?
Yeah, we can see it. If you just want to throw it in presenter mode, it'll be great.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Jamila Mayanja, founder at Smart Girls Foundation Uganda. So when I was in high school, in primary, I went through a lot of menstrual bullying. So in primary school, so I reached high school. I was in an all-girls school, so it felt like a safe space. It challenged me on how I could help my fellow girls there. Fast forward, when I reached my high school, I went on to research if there are girls like me who went through a lot of menstrual bullying. But then I found out even the girls who are not as privileged as me went through worse when it came to menstrual health and sanitation. So they even went through as worse as menstrual poverty. So I decided to, in 2013, when I had just finished my university, to start an event so that I could fundraise for reusable pads for young girls in rural areas who were going through worse situation than I went through. For me, it was a fact that there was a lot of stigma around menstrual health and sanitation. So I ended up using toilet paper when I was really young, because I started my menses really young. So, but girls were going through worse situations in rural areas that they couldn't even have access to toilet paper. So I decided to hold a father-daughter event where I could have young girls in the middle class to be able to connect with their fathers so that, you know, we can take away the menstrual stigma between men and their daughters, but also while fundraising for reusable pads. This was successful. I was able to fundraise over thousands and thousands of reusable pads that I gave out in schools. And later on, while I was doing this, I went for a fellowship in the US that took me to Dartmouth University, and I learned about design thinking. So after the fellowship, when I came back, I wanted to find out, to test out design thinking, to find out if the reusable pads I had given out in schools had actually kept the girls in schools. But I found out more than 80% with the feedback, the girls were still staying out of school. And the reason was, by the time this young girl couldn't afford a reusable pad, she didn't have access to a carry bag to be able to keep that pad in there. And most of them, when they would get to school, since they share wash facilities in school, it was very inconvenient for them to use those reusable pads. And even the time in between break or lunchtime, they didn't have water or they didn't have the time to wash them properly, to hang them. But if they got that time, if they were in boarding, they were not, they didn't have the confidence and the privacy to wash them. And most of the pads were giving were the same. So they preferred using those reusable pads from home. So the solution of them being in school was not being solved. And they were still, again, going through menstrual bullying, because they would keep with one reusable pad and then they would stain their dresses and they were laughed at by the boys. So it was a psychological torture for the girls to use the reusable pads in school. So I saw a call for innovations on Open IDEO, and I put up my idea to try and come up with a bag that would help them give the girls convenience to use their reusable pads, but also give them the privacy in carrying these reusable pads, and also time in between when they go back home to wash the reusable pads. So I innovated that bag, which was fully on cloth, and a component for the bags. And when they would get to school and they don't have where to wash from the pads, they would be able to keep them in there so that they can be able to take them to home and wash them at their convenience and be able to have time to wash them properly. The bag came with a pair of reusable pads. It came with a menstrual health management booklet, and some of them give them something small. So this, I tested it with over 5,000 girls. And later on, I went back to get and find out feedback if this prototype had actually worked. And we noticed still some girls were staying out of school. And the reason was because this was a fully closed bag, and Uganda, most rural areas out of Uganda generally is quite a rainy country. So whenever they would walk quite a distance, and most of these girls live quite away from school, whenever they would walk to school and it's raining, the content inside would get wet. So when they would get home, the pads are wet, so everything is wet. So it was quite an inconvenience. So I decided to partner with Relief Africa, which does recycling of plastic, for us to make the bag waterproof, which led to the bag in between that you see that is totally pink. We recycled plastic waste in the waste that we're picking from the slum areas of Kampala, so that we could make the bag waterproof. So we hire women in the slum areas that can collect this plastic, fuse it together, make a material that we sew into a bag to make the bag waterproof. But while we're also testing it and give it out to a number of girls in rural areas, we still noticed there was still a percentage after feedback that were still staying out of school, because when these girls would get back home, they would get engaged in housework. And then after housework, it's really dark, and most of their toilets are detached from their main house. So at night, they didn't have access to light to maintain their menstrual sanitation and hygiene. So some of them still would be inconvenienced because of that darkness. And later on, still their performance, even despite staying in school, was still very low, because at night, since they didn't have light to read their books. So we decided to add solar to the bag again to make it absolutely smart. So we made a recycled recycled smart bag and a recycled solar smart bag. So we added solar into the bag to make sure later on in the dark, that solar panel, when they're walking to school, that solar panel charges that light bulb that you see, so that when they get at night, it's fully charged, so that it can give them access to light. And we also decided to make the bags different, so that we have ownership for the bags for every girl we give them to. So that's why you see the different colors, and this all came from the big feedback we're collecting. Later on, during COVID, this was quite a success with partnership with organizations.
Thank you, Mela. 1 minute, please.
Been able to sell. Okay, thank you. We also, in COVID, most of our schools in Uganda are locked down. They're still not yet open. So we decided also now, because of feedback, we are going to add in a solar-powered learning tablet. And for girls already access to bags, we've also made menstrual toilet bags that are helping them also with their menstrual health management. So this has come through partnership testing and also getting feedback from the young girls that were helping out with the smart bag. So yeah, that's how we've developed the recycled solar smart bag till date. And we are still testing and getting feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for respecting the time. I really appreciate it. Such an interesting product. I have so many questions, but yeah, I see that Christian made the point, because I was going to say this as well. So the smart bags also sold on the retail market, and Jamila, don't undersell yourself. I hear that NGOs and other actors in the sector are also looking at procuring it. So well done on your efforts. It's really awesome. And like I say, I have lots of questions, but Peninah, over to you and your Wow Mum work. And I hear you've been doing quite a lot of prototyping and developing yourself. So please, over to you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So Wow Mum is a social enterprise, like I talked about, and we advocate for children-friendly cities. And for us, I'm an urban planner by training. And for me, the most interesting thing is to see children thrive and enjoying the cities that they're growing up in. So one particular time I happened to be traveling with my baby in Nairobi CBD, and I could not access a baby changing station. And I had to actually walk for over 1 kilometer to go to a cafe, buy coffee, and then take advantage of that moment to change my baby's diaper. And then that's when I thought, what do other women who cannot actually be able to access those facilities do? So we initiated a research, a feasibility study, and we got a lot of feedback from caregivers who have had a lot of challenges when it comes to traveling with their children in public spaces in major cities in Kenya, but we started with Nairobi. So the main challenge was all the public toilets could not provide for baby changing facilities, and there was their need to actually provide those basic facilities in the toilets. Then, so they were actually forced to either leave their children at home, or they would then, if you have to travel with them, you have to either talk to a good Samaritan in the shops, get ridiculed, get bullied, and it became a very stress factor for most caregivers to even, like a baby became a stress factor. You just want to leave them at home to avoid the harassment. So we thought, what can we do to intervene as well, Mom? So of course, now we went around all the public toilets when we were surveying, we analyzed the space that is available, and it was clear that we could be able to fit a baby changing station. So that's when now the design process began. So being a public toilet, first of all, it was most of them are very wet and slippery. Sometimes they're not very well cleaned. So we were very conscious about the design that would, or even the materials that would use for designing the toilet. It had to be waterproof or something that will not rot after a particular time. So we worked with the students of the University of Nairobi, because when you're a startup, you're resource constrained, and at that time we did not have partners. So we worked with students from the University of Nairobi who helped us come with our first design of a baby changing station. So the design that we came up with was more curved, and like it was actually still wooden, but we thought because there were some toilets had like a toilet where, dedicated for persons with disability, we thought that could be a good space to retrofit it, and it will be away from, the other toilet space where there could be water and a lot of, traffic. And when it came down to building the prototype, it became very challenging, because then we noted that unless we have to do it, using manufactured or processed wood. And that again was very expensive. So we had to go back to the drawing board and come up with a second design. So we were still trying to use wood, because again, being a public toilet, we were also worried about vandalism. Like ensuring that the facilities that we install are not going to be stolen, because there are incidences of that. And so we wanted to actually use local materials that are locally available, something that is easy to fix. And if something is broken, we can be able to repair and something like that. So again, now with the second prototype, we now came up, still wooden, but it was more square. And we actually looked for we partnered with local organizations, carpenters, who helped us come with a good product. Then, of course, there was the aspect of testing it, because you have to consider the bearing weight of a baby, and maybe a caregiver carrying some goods, maybe a bag, a paper. Women caregivers are always carrying an extra bag, maybe for changing clothes and all that. So we tested it, and the hinges that we were able to get locally were not able to support it in a way that it could sustain a frequent use. It's a good product, yes, but that can only be used in a place with low traffic. But now for Nairobi's case, public toilet with high traffic, with volume of users, it will not work. So again, we went back to the drawing board, and we thought that maybe we can try steel. And steel, again, was okay, but then the product became too expensive that it would almost make, it would be so difficult for us to provide the product and even to scale. So again, we went back to the drawing board, and we had to go back to manufacturing. So we started looking for local manufacturers who would help us come with baby changing stations, and they were demanding for very high MOQ. So we, again, being a startup, we could not afford coming up with a minimum of 1,000 pieces. And these are products you've not tested. You've not tested even the market, the quality, the standard. So again, we're not willing to take that risk. So with all these challenges, we're like, what do we do? And thanks to this accelerator program, now we were able to look to outsource products from China. And again, that was also not a very easy process. That was not the initial goal. We wanted to really come up with a product that is locally made, that is, local product solving the local issues. But we ended up going to China. And again, now going to China, you have to look for organized companies or manufacturers with quality products. So again, there are quite a number. So you have to check the quality, the standards, the cost, and how easy it is for them to customize your product. And of course, even the affordability aspect of it. So luckily we got a good manufacturer, and in fact, our first batch samples we just got into Nairobi this week, and we are hoping to now test them. And then before now, we can start scaling and outsourcing for bigger and more product. So that has been our journey. For me, what I've learned is that you're never sure. You have to keep testing, you have to keep trying, and you cannot shy away from going back to the drawing board when a product is not working. And it also takes a lot of time. It also takes a lot of resources, and you need to be patient as a social innovator and keeping going back to why you're doing this initiative. You have to think about the user needs. What is it that they want? And how do you actually make sure that you come up with a product that is durable, that is quality, that meets the needs of the persons you're designing for? So that has been my story. And I'm so excited to start testing them coming November. And I'll be happy to give more feedback in the future. So that has been my journey.
Thank you so much, Peninah. That's so interesting and great advice to other innovators. I also really liked your point about, as a startup, you're quite resource constrained. So leveraging the university and things like that. I think, it's quite interesting to see two ends of the spectrum with Sato, who have a bit more resources versus, the startup side of things. But all prototyping is good. It's just different opportunities. Okay, so we're going to move into our panel session. I'm going to have all the guests come join us, hopefully, if you can turn your cameras on, and I believe some magic will happen. Right, so what we're going to talk about during this panel is the role of partnerships and things like this. And Erkis, I actually want to come to you first, because you haven't had an opportunity to share the work you've been doing in Mongolia, but you're part of the Changemakers initiative, which is slightly different to the Duke Accelerator. But please, can you just quickly give us an overview of your story and how partnerships have supported you in prototyping and getting your business to where it is today? Thanks.
So I actually have a very specific story for that. So when we were developing the off-grid and water recycling and reusing toilet, we came up with our first prototype. And then now we needed people who would like test our prototype, right? Because it's a toilet, like it's very awkward to just go on the street and ask a stranger, so can you just come with us and then use this toilet, right? So, we also had only 3 people in the team. So we needed like unbiased people who would like give us true feedback. And that's when partnership really helped us. Like we partnered with this company, we found this company. And this company was building like solar plants in very rural area in Mongolia, and their workers was like actually using pit latrines similar to the Daigo showed before. So and then we had like advanced toilet prototype, right? So they actually agreed to test our prototype in the field in the rural area in Mongolia. So we sent our prototype there, and so this is my experience in partnerships.
Amazing and so succinct.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really useful. So Edgard, from what I know, you're a bit of a partnership master. So you're working with Duke and different things with WashAid, and a lot of your work does involve developing and building these partnerships. I know you have a personal interest in mentorship as well. So would you like to share some of your experiences around the value of partnerships and how this led to innovation development?
Yes, absolutely. So at Duke WashAid, we work on a continuum from basic research to commercialization. And one critical element within our scope is to bridge this innovation chasm. And to achieve that goal, we believe it is important to develop and prototype hardware technologies, which is our core, I would say, business. But in parallel, we need also to prototype the associated business models. So who's going to save money, who's going to make money, and how? And this requires understanding the intervention context where we're going to do our business, and also support the development of an ecosystem of truly engaged stakeholders. And this is where in-context partnership early in the development becomes critical. So I'm going to share actually a lesson that I learned these past years. In some instances, my initiatives, have failed because projects were designed using what we call a waterfall model, and these may work for building government-backed infrastructure like roads or schools, but it's not guaranteed in WASH. And another reason for failure is a poor stakeholder analysis. And we tend to say, okay, if we don't have a proper stakeholder engagement plan, at the end, it becomes hard to gain traction to create an ecosystem as early as possible. And the next thing you know, you have a technology prototype with no one to support the commercial transition because the most important stakeholders at this phase of the program do not feel engaged. So some critical questions to answer, especially for technology development in the WASH space, are how can we involve users from resource-constrained environments earlier? How can we work with policymakers at the design stage? How can we foster collaboration with government bodies at the lab demonstration phase? And answers to these questions help define a robust stakeholder engagement plan to collect continuous input into the prototyping, to improve technology acceptance, to have support in promoting the proposed solutions. But the most important is also to manage expectations.
That's such a great piece of advice, and that's something I actually find myself saying a lot, and I see a lot of nods going around. Expectation management is key, and I think with innovation, sometimes we try and solve too many problems rather than saying, actually, this is the one problem I'm going to solve. I recognize all these other ones, but actually, let me stick to what I can do, make a success of that, learn from my failures along the way, and then expand. And I'm going to get in a plug for a personal project of mine, which is the WASH Failures Project, which is all around sharing failure, because actually we need to be more positive in how we do this so that we can learn from it. And that to me is what prototyping is. I have a burning question. The joy of facilitation is I can ask my burning questions, and it's actually to Daigo, and it is, what is the product iteration of the Sato Tap? and of, you know, the Sato toilet. And there's a question in the box from Hyacinthia about making Sato accessible for older persons. I'm going to throw in disability as well at this point. Anybody who struggles with squatting, pregnant women, I've been there, it's not fun. And I know that we've come up with a solution to this for emergencies at UNICEF in product innovation. And the key has been partnerships, because actually it's not a single product alone, it's putting products together. And I know the Sato solution, and I'm very curious about kind of how this goes together. And Daigo, maybe not so much on the solution itself, but how do you do the prototyping and the product iteration to learn, to improve? You know, what's next? How do we keep doing that? Thanks.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you. So first off, on the squatting, you know, we realized that for, you know, elderly people, pregnant, you know, women, squatting can be hard. So we do have a sitting solution by the SKU number 211, you know, Sato 211, which is a stool type that you can sit on, so you don't have to squat. So if you can, you know, check out our website, you know, sato.lixil.com, you can see that product. And on the product iteration, so like when we go to a market, we have that mindset of going in with a blank, you know, mind, and just kind of listen, you know, to the market, what the gaps are, you know, what the people are needing and wanting. And so we develop products to that market. Now, if one of our products would fit that market need, well, then we introduce that. There's no need to reinvent, you know, something that's been invented. But if there's a need for something new, you know, kind of like the tap, you know, that was, you know, that we didn't have any hand washing solution, so we developed it. But so we keep making incremental, you know, changes, you know, on our products. You know, we're currently making one change on one of our bigger selling products to make it even better. The installation can be easier, so we were making that change to make the installation easier, and so forth. So like I think just continuously like keeping your eyes and ears open to the market and the feedback that we get, and then like not be really stagnant and just get fixated on a product, but keep making improvements on that. So being agile, really, you know, responsive to the market, I think that's the key.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting. I can talk about this for hours. I'm fascinated by product development and how we move forward. I wanted to come to Jamila next and ask a little bit more about the development of your bag. So I think it's a beautiful product. Like, it's just beautiful to look at, which is always interesting. But I wanted to ask, how have you kind of found engaging partners beyond the obvious user? So again, a lot of our products in these kind of use cases have the direct user, but then we pick up peripherals along the way. You know, I started on a project aimed at disability, and we end up realizing that it benefits menstruating women, pregnant women, elderly persons along the way. So how do you see the development of your bag? Christian mentioned in the chat that it's being procured for donation by NGOs, and that you've got a private sector market. So at what point do you think you might have to have a different business model for the different users, and how does that change your partnership model? Thanks.
Thank you. So at first, we were absolutely developing for donation benefit, but because of sustainability, we noticed the bag also is very enlightening and very exciting for a person who can afford it. Mostly it's attractive because of the solar and the different colors, as we said. So our model is really, we place the bags in supermarkets and pharmacies, and with each bag we sell, we make another that we give out for free. So we really wanted, like, for why we are adding, like, for the ones that we are selling, we are adding more enticing products that will actually attract the middle class to buy them, because it needs, our model is to make sure we sell and still make those that cannot afford it. So our partnerships are very key in still in the private sector when it comes to sales, because we have companies that just buy in bulk to give out. We have companies that buy to give to their staff and their kids. Then we have organizations that really actually buy because already their companies, as if you'd say our competitors, but more of our partners who already have make reusable pads, but give it them out in pouches. The use of the smart bag, it gives it gives them a wider range of usage of the reusable pad. So the partnership, our competitors now have become our partners because now it's a win-win for both of us. So it has gone that way, and they see the sense of the fact of the sustainability because we're making sure with whatever we sell, we are giving out another for free, and we've given a wider range of what you can place in the bag. For example, in partnership we are having right now, we are starting with UNHCR. We are also going to add undergarments for the refugees. So the bag, it can go so far with
Sorry, Jamila, your connection's cutting out.
And what can be placed?
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's not your fault, and it's a shame. It's super interesting, and I actually wonder if there's opportunity if you're partnering with UNHCR to look at whether or not these bags could be used in lieu of the back to school bags and things like that. Like, I have so many questions. As you can tell, this is like my nature. But I'm going to go to Eric. I wonder how much Erchissaran, sorry, that this kind of reflects with your experience, because you're at a different level in terms of product development and how far it's going. So is this stuff useful for you to kind of take on board, or do you think it resonates with your experiences?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Given that your product's at a slightly earlier stage of development, from what I understand,
yes.
Do you find this kind of useful things to take on board for going forwards, or do you think it resonates with your experience and you're finding the similar need to ensure that you've got these different levels of partnerships that support the development and the business model going forward?
Well, it would be very interesting if I see like other sustainable packaging options in Mongolia. But for now, like I know there are some recycled paper bags outside, but I don't think it's actually manufactured in Mongolia. And I will be very happy to partner with them, like, because for now I'm doing everything in my kitchen, right? If there is a company that actually like have sustainable package, if I could like just text them, like, can I use your facility? Can we like do this pilot project together? So yeah, it's very important. The partnerships are very important for me now, but unfortunately, I guess I'm one of the first people who are working towards sustainable packaging in Mongolia.
Yeah, that is a challenge. And it's interesting because even Daigo is saying that for his prototyping phase, he needed access to that 3D printer during lockdown. Access to anything was a challenge. But it is, you know, those little breaks and those maker spaces that allow, and Peninah, this was your experience as well, right? With the changing stations, you know, the key importance of that hinge sounds like a really small part that all of us would take, you know, for granted. And so the role that these kind of big partnerships, but even as you said, Peninah, just opportunistic with the university and leveraging, dare I say it, free labor, but crediting where credit's due, but you know, how we kind of leverage these roles going forwards. We're coming to the last 5 minutes of this workshop. And so what I'd like to do in the last 5 minutes, I'd like to go to each of our speakers and just ask them, like, quickly, for everyone listening, let's make an assumption that they're all also innovators working in this space and they're looking to prototype and develop. So what would be your one key message in terms of partnershiping or prototype development that you kind of wish you'd known a year ago that would really have made a difference to how you take your process forward? And even though Edgard has had the least chance to speak, I'm going to save you till last because I have a feeling you have some really good advice on this. So I really want to give you the opportunity to sum up at the end, if that's okay. So we'll start with Peninah, if that's okay.
Thank you. So I would advise everyone to keep moving forward. There's nothing like giving up. Being an innovator means you're like a potter. You have to keep building until it's perfect. Build, break down, start afresh, keep doing it until you have a good product. And just to comment something I've seen on the chat, yeah, I understand like maybe changing stations are maybe low moving goods compared to like Sato toilets and all that. But one thing I would like to say is that sometimes we focus so much on, you know, we can focus so much on the sales, like the number of units that you will sell. But we also forget the cost or the implication of not providing those facilities. These are millions of babies who are open defecating, not knowing, but just because they're deprived of that facility. So tell any innovator, yes, making sales, and that's important, but also focus on the impact that your product is going to make. I always say if one person is happy, it's worth it. It will be expensive, as you know, it will be expensive, but I think you should not give up. Keep working until you may get partners along the way, but do not give up. Keep rebuilding until you come up with something perfect.
Oh, Peninah, that's exactly the reason I love working in innovation. It's people like you who just really believe in what they're doing and recognize the gap that it's filling, and they'll just find a way, one foot in front of the other each day. That's really nice. Thank you. Daigo, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I really echo what Peninah just said. You know, like you've seen from Sato or Tap, you know, your first idea, the greatest idea you have in your mind is usually not the end product. So it's just, you know, going with an open mind and build prototypes, learn from it, and then rethink, and then like rebuild until, you know, you converge to a solution. And when you feel like you converge to a solution, you probably have it. So like, you know, again, be ready to just kind of prove yourself wrong and just kind of start all over. But I think you have to have that, you know, that tenacity, that grit to just kind of, you know, take it, you know, take the punch, but then come up with something better. But unless you start, you'll never get there. So like, I think the important thing is to start somewhere, somehow. Start small even, you know, you're not gonna, you know, solve everything in one shot, but just, you know, just start and then see what happens. You know, put your best foot forward every time you do things, and then you just keep building.
Amazing, thanks. Jamila, would you like to go next?
Yes, I can't add much. What I can say is don't stop being empathetic towards your beneficiaries and keep on being hungry to solve their problems. And also what I've learned from the Duke-UNICEF Accelerator is don't stop measuring your impact, because it keeps on challenging you to make your product much better. So keep tabs of what impact you're actually doing. It answers the question of your innovations. So, and you know, don't stop learning, because I've kept on learning and still learning. And don't be arrogant around the fact that you've developed the best solution ever. Keep on challenging yourself to even be much better than what you have already, and keep on thriving for the beneficiaries, and design with the beneficiaries, not for them. Be with them in the process to do a successful product. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think your point on impact monitoring is brilliant, because talking about partnerships, that's what brings partners to the table. If you've got the evidence to show the impact you're having, not only can it bring donors to the table, but it can bring other opportunistic partners that can be mutually beneficial. And I think definitely for me, where I sit in terms of innovation and wanting to procure at scale, that impact monitoring is really important to ensure that we can buy with confidence. So Erchissaran, would you like to go next?
Okay, so actually I learned this from the Young Changemakers program. It is that at the beginning, do minimum necessary actions to make your first prototype. Because like a year ago, when I had this idea, I also had a lot of ideas about how I can improve this product. But and I was already overwhelmed by all the ideas I had. So it was very important to actually cut down the unnecessary actions and then do the minimum necessary actions to actually make my first prototype. It really cleared my vision. And yeah, that is one thing I would like to note.
Thanks. It's really great to see the impact that these innovation opportunities, you know, these accelerators and these changemaker programs have, and that, you know, it's really useful. I was going to point Daigo to the chat, but I see he's just answered, so I will save that. So Edgard, come on then, these words of wisdom, no pressure, but I have a feeling you've got something really good for us stored up there.
Yeah, so, you know, I like sharing actually my failures, because I think this is what most benefits people. So one lesson that I learned about wash technology development is that we should not dissociate I would say a minimum valuable product from a minimum marketable product. Because the first one we know aims at satisfying the early adopters, and the second one is for the early majority. And as we know, this may work for luxury goods, which is a product for which, you know, demand increases more than proportionally as income rises. But in the wash context, and when the goal is to reach the least financially wealthy, margins are low, if any. So for me, the organization that can carry these activities must be socially driven, just like those that we have discussed with today. And to survive as a socially driven organization and not rely on grants, charity, it's important to reach the economies of scale. And to do so, developing a minimum marketable product together with a minimum valuable product must be, I would say, an early identified targets, but not necessarily an obsession, because key is small iteration and continuous value delivery.
My language, I love it. Thank you, and nice and succinct. So I think this has been a really great panel, and it's been so interesting to hear all your stories and the lessons you've learned. I apologize to everyone online. We are a couple of minutes over, but thank you for hanging on. And just to wrap up and say that you've all been really good and really open and honest, and I'm very, very intrigued to see where all these products go in the future. So thank you once again, everyone, for your time today. Thanks to Duke and UNICEF for organising today's event. And there are other events this week if you're interested. But for now, that's it from us. So thank you very much, everyone.